fist pumped through Club Obsidian's velvet walls, yet the scream was followed by an overwhelming quiet. A cracked champagne flute covered in blood. A gold chain was left on the ground, shimmering under a broken table. Mendeecees was being pulled to the ground by security, his fists clenched and his chest heaving. Kirk Frost's lip bled across the room. Raw rage and humiliation have taken the place of his trademark grin. Kendra rushed for Kirk's mystery woman, tearing her weave as her heels clicked across the floor like war drums. Out in the middle of a scream, through the tinted windows, flashing lights from outside blurred, sirens screamed as blue and red whirled in a disorienting beat. A reality show gone too real. The setting was chaotic. As the cops restrained him, Kirk shouted, "Get off me!" In a furious tone. Young Jock laughed from the rear corner as Mendeecees spit blood and said, "You brought this on yourself." Realizing the phone in his palm too late was continuing to broadcast live. Under the flashing lights of cop cars, the entire city watched in real time as Atlanta aristocracy collapsed. This was not staged. It wasn't acting, and what followed was beyond anyone's control. Why did they quarrel? Who deceived whom? And what secrets led to this breakdown? You're not prepared. It was more than simply a brawl. This was the volcanic eruption of decades of deceit, betrayal, and wrath. It seemed to the general public to be two adult guys fighting in a club. However, it was clear to those who were paying close attention that this would inevitably occur. Let's begin with Kirk Frost, who in some way turned gaslighting into a career trajectory. In Atlanta, the Frost name used to have significance: hustle, money, and music. However, Kirk eventually turned it into something sinister. Once the envy of many, his marriage to Rashida became poisonous long ago. Infidelity, rumors, everything outmodest until the nuclear bomb was dropped by Jasmine Washington. She was pregnant with Kirk's child, who resembled him exactly. Rashida made an effort to hang on. Although she made an effort to forgive, she secretly stored dates, texts, notebooks, and receipts. In a diary that a production assistant stole, she once wrote, "Kirk is the man who gave me a camera after breaking my heart and told me to smile for the scene." Mendeecees Harris, however, wasn't really Mr. Innocent. Mendeecees and Yandandi Smith had a turbulent past. Mendeecees was imprisoned for years on trafficking charges, leaving Yandandi to raise their kids by herself. She supported him, paid him a weekly visit, prayed for him, and stood up for him online like a soldier, but all changed when he was released. That night at the Dominican place is still spoken about in Harlem. Yandandi strolled while Mendeecees was caught chatting in Spanish with another woman. That rift in their relationship never completely mended, and she wrote a scroll to her sister after walking out in the middle of laughing. Yes, a real scroll. "He addresses me as if I were a piece of furniture, and I can no longer identify my reflection when that's how deep it went," he says. However, it wasn't only reality TV that drew Mendeecees and Kirk into each other's circle. They laughed at the filth, connected over their mistakes, swapped stories about long shoots, and knew each other's dirt. It was a shared failure. Kirk once said to young Jock, "Men stay acting brand new," but in reality, they never appreciated one another. The man wants to talk about loyalty even though he has been in and out of jail more times than a DJ plays records. Mendeecees kept that in mind. Then there was the notorious Crystal Prophecy Night. Yes, during a lunar eclipse, Tasha Crystal, a former wardrobe department manager who is now a witch, once forewarned both men, saying, the day your family disintegrates is when you both bleed each other's blood. One will lose their heritage, while the other will lose their affection." They dismissed her and laughed it off. But 5 years later, Rashida discovered Kirk's message tucked away in an old box underneath tour merchandise. Tasha had given them each a note wrapped with a black string that said, "She will, with dry eyes, watch you fall." And Yandandi, she found her note 2 days before the fight buried in her son's old playpen. It said, "You'll realize you were never his residence, just a place to relax in between conflicts." They ought to have been aware at the time. Then there's young Jock, who has been jumping from crisis to drama like a jester with a lighter in a pyrotechnics factory. He's the agitator, the whisperer, the havoc dealer. However, Jock is skilled at playing stupid. He instructed security, "Let them both in." Knowing what would happen if he brought Mendeecees to Club Obsidian on the night Kirk was supposed to host, I'm curious to see what occurs when gasoline and thunder cross paths. His desire came true. In flashbacks, Jock was seen saying to Kendra earlier that week, it would be over if him and Kirk ever had a serious conversation about Jasmine and her trip to Miami. "What trip?" she inquired. "Ask Kirk about the rooftop and the blue dress," Jock remarked with a sly smile. "Up until today, nobody ever did." You see, underneath all of this club drama and male ego, there's a deeper secret one night. Miami, Jasmine, and a betrayal that never came to light. Yandandy once heard men say, "I'll never forgive myself for that night, but if it comes out, it'll kill everything." She assumed he was referring about infidelity, but she never suspected he was referring to Kirk, since the events of that evening went beyond simple adultery. It was an agreement to defend one another's falsehoods, but agreements forged in weakness are usually destroyed by fire. Therefore, it wasn't only about insulting Rashida once more when Mendeecees witnessed Kirk cuddling up to another lady at the club. It was also about that night, the cover-up, the quiet, the remorse. And Kirk, when he saw Mendeecees approaching him with fists up, he only murmured, "You wouldn't," without flinching, his eyes rigid with wrath. However, he did, and now the curse has started. The video became viral 3 days after the club fight. Every blog from the Shade Room to TMZ was reposting, with over 4.2 million views on TikTok and 1.3 million on Instagram. However, no one was yet aware of what preceded Mendeecees' initial swing. What secret ignited this like wildfire in the midst of an already toxic forest? It all began with a genuine scroll. Yandandy discovered a cylinder wrapped in velvet in her mailbox that morning. There was a F sealed in wax with a crimson-red stamp on ancient parchment that was tearing at the ends and had no return address. "One will fall and one will betray in the shadows of Club Obsidian," she read as she opened it. "When the bloodline splits, the secret kid will emerge. Let the truth bleed at last." The scroll burned her fingertips as she gripped it. It had an air of antiquity, yet also private. Her hands trembled. Even though she hadn't spoken to Rashida in weeks, her gut told her that this had to do with her, Kirk, and that terrible night. In Miami, Mendeecees was not informed by her. A fan website shared archival video from a Love and Hip Hop reunion program that never aired later that day. In it, Kirk is taken aback by Mike's statement. "Man, Mendeecees should have kept his mouth shut about Jasmine. He's lucky I ain't exposed what really happened." Only a few hours before to the battle, that video reappeared. However, that wasn't the worst aspect. Backstage at Club Obsidian, before to the commotion, young Jock was approached by men. He said, "You posted that clip." "Nah, but I sure didn't stop it." "You've been lying too long, bro," said the jock who started it, grinning. "Karma doesn't require cameras," Mendeecees said, squinting. "What are you attempting to convey?" Jock gave a shrug. Perhaps the wrong man was held accountable for Jasmine's child. At that moment, M's entire being broke. The true turn of events. Mendeecees might be the baby Jasmine claimed was Kirk's. See, Kirk, Mendeecees, Jock, and Safari are back in Miami on a business trip. We're all having a good time in a penthouse room with some women who had been brought in from Atlanta. Kirk had invited Jasmine, but she ultimately vanished with Mendeecees into a back room. She was thought to be Kirk's sidekick by everyone, including manufacturing. But even then, there were rumors. When Jasmine became pregnant, Kirk took the fall. Perhaps out of loyalty. Perhaps because it was more visually appealing to watch him cheat once more. Perhaps it was to shield Yandi from the veracity. The blood, however, is truthful. According to rumors, Jasmine contacted Yandandy months ago, implying that a blood relative would be a match for her son's medical operation. Until she read the scroll, Yandandy dismissed it. She didn't understand this was more than tabloid drama until she watched the leaked film. It was family. Everything fell apart at the club. Something inside Mendeecees broke as he watched Kirk cuddling up to another lady and laughing as if he hadn't destroyed 2 families. At first, he approached calmly. He replied in a hushed voice, "You ever think about what we owe the people who protected us?" Kirk furrowed his brow. "You drunk, bro. I should have let your ass burn when Jasmine came crying." M fought back the tears. "Carried the burden for you." Kirk chuckled icily. "You're angry now because she told you the truth. I don't own that boy. And your entire home collapses if everyone finds out." Then there were screaming, broken glass, and a fist to the jaw. Carnage ensued, but the emotional damage was more powerful than any physical attack. Now that both guys were imprisoned in different cells, the truth was starting to come out. And quickly, because Jasmine had taken financial support under the presumption that Kirk was the father. The Atlanta Day started an investigation into a potential case of fake paternity. If something turns out to be untrue, it might be criminal fraud as well as treachery. Kirk could file a lawsuit, Mendeecees could have to take an exam, and the kid in the middle of this storm? Mothers are silent, with a candle emoji and the words "lies burned in silence still leave smoke." Jasmine shared a mysterious Instagram tale. Although Rashida hasn't said anything in public, insiders claim that she has already contacted an attorney behind closed doors, not for Kirk, but for herself. She's getting ready to part ways. "She's finally done," a source said. The final omen was that scroll. Yon Dandy has also changed the locks and ghosted mails, informed the filmmakers that she would not participate in the movie until he revealed everything. The biggest shock is that there are rumors that a DNA test is being conducted behind the scenes, filmed for a future season, and the findings are being held by a third party. And here's the thing. A young jock was spotted outside a clinic 2 days following the altercation with a youngster and Jasmine. Is it a coincidence? Or is Jock acting as a messenger for the impending truth bomb that will affect everyone? This is prophesy, not merely theater. It's suffering masquerading as amusement. Additionally, if the next event is as significant as someone's entire reputation is set to be buried, according to murmurs, the air in Atlanta was heavy with conjecture, not smoke. The morning following the turmoil in the courtroom, something was changing. Like an invisible tide, a fresh wave of drama was emerging. Even though the club fight was violent, what followed the truth was still bleeding, so the knife was twisted even farther. The curse had not yet been lifted. A fictitious magical scroll was the first step. The first person to notice was Yan. When she got home, the same velvet-wrapped scroll that she had gotten days before was waiting for her. The same same wax seal. However, the parchment within was new this time. Printed on paper that had been artificially aged, it was clear. The child has the message and the truth you're looking for. The fire will rekindle with just 1 drop of blood. In a panic, she called Rashida right away. After avoiding the media for days, Rashida whispered back, "I got one too. What did yours say?" Rashida paused when Yandindi said, "Your heart will betray you. Never choose you." He picked the lie. Someone with a purpose was haunting them, not simply guilt or paparazzi. Then came the rumors from the villagers, and toward the end was this whole breakdown being planned from behind the scenes. The rumors quickly spread, and by villagers we mean bloggers and insiders from Atlanta who function more like a contemporary folklore council. A conspiracy page shared a blurry picture of the DNA test envelope and claimed that it was given to Amina Rashida's half-sister, who works at a genetics lab, rather than Kirk or Mende. Up until now, Amina had never been involved in the issue. Because Amina said, "If y'all knew what I just saw, if you knew the name on that second file, you'd understand why." When she went live at 2 in the morning, obviously frightened, it's all cursed. Not just one of them owns this baby. The secret isn't that. The key is who has been concealing it the entire time. Fans started speculating when she concluded the live performance and vanished offline. In the meantime, a competing lover returned, and Jasmine Washington delivered a bombshell. What if someone else, someone unexpected, already knew the baby's actual paternity and purposefully deceived everyone? She posted a picture of herself and Scrappy cuddling in Miami to Instagram with the remark, "Some things age better with time." Hold on, Scrappy. Why did it matter that Lil Scrappy was a long-standing castmate and Mendeecees' adversary? In the backdrop of the picture, there was a calendar with a marked date. April 17, 2018, the week she became pregnant and the night of that notorious Miami incident. Jasmine wasn't just coming back for drama. Fans enlarged, matched, and zoomed in on the trip, and it became apparent that Scrappy was also present. Then came the terrifying prophecy. That same evening, Tasha Crystal, a former wardrobe assistant who is now a psychic medium, uploaded a video from what seemed to be a cellar illuminated by candles. She was wearing a black veil, and her voice somber. "A brother will rise, a parent will fall, and before the next full moon, the person you trust the most will quiet you. The bloodline breaks at daybreak." Rashida and Yandi both saw the shadows behind the scrolls, which speak louder than the names on the paper. The video independently and then blocked each other out of dread rather than rage. As if the prophecy was accurate, it would indicate that someone in their immediate vicinity was manipulating them. At that point, everything changed since the child was at the center of the conflict. Even if everyone believed it was about loyalty, infidelity, and past transgressions, the kid at the core of all this suffering was Jasmine's son. Everyone thought he was either Kirk's or Mendeecees until a hospital record leaked and a birth certificate revealed something startling. The father's name was blank. However, it said Josel Robinson, youthful jock, under next of kin. What jock? The clown? The hype man? The stirrer? Wasn't only creating drama for amusement, he was in it, and perhaps, just possibly, he had been concealing the truth all along, which would account for his persistent presence, his strange smiles, and why he told Mendeecees, "You ought to have refrained from speaking." Why did he continue to pull Kirk and M into the same rooms, and why did he allow the video to leak? He was the chef, not the stirrer. According to the prophecy, the one you trust most will quit talking. As of right now, Jock was free, making memes, laughing. and remaining in Jasmine's orbit while Kirk and Mendeecees were both incarcerated and quiet. It all made sense, but now the stakes were higher than ever since Jock could destroy reputations, jobs, and marriages with a single phrase if he had that truth. The scrolls were diversions. The fight served as a diversion. The DNA test may never have been necessary since the falsehood he created was the true curse. What had begun as a crazy club fight quickly became a spiritual conflict, a paternity mystery, and a public reckoning as the aftermath spread to every platform, podcast, and group chat in Atlanta and beyond. While Kirk, Mendeecees, and Kendra were incarcerated, the world outside was ablaze with views, rumors, and rage rumors in the tavern. This time, she's gone. Rashida and Kirk once proudly launched a store at Swag House, where staff members congregated in the backstage. "I heard she finally banned his number," one employee stated, displaying a grainy image, phones in hand, eyes wide with shock. And this time, after an hour, she didn't unblock him. "She's been speaking with a lawyer," one of her supervisors muttered. "Quiet, concentrated, and frightening. Y'all think she's going to leave for real this time," said another. Since even Rashida was unaware, nobody responded. One thing was evident though: legacy, her brand, and her identity were now more important than adultery. For years, Kirk had subjected her to humiliation in public. But this was different. The DNA deception, the scrolls, the bloodline curse. She sent a message on Instagram stories with white lettering on black, and it seemed definitive. Letting the fire burn, let it all burn can sometimes bring you the tranquility you need. Her inbox was inundated with prayers from her admirers' hands, as well as phrases like, "We got you, sis." "Rashida ain't just packing her bags, she packing receipts," said a remark that received more than 7,000 likes. Sending scrolls covertly, the power play of Yandy, on the other hand, had gone silent on social media, removed her last 3 postings, and sent private scrolls, yes, actual printed scrolls to important VH1 executives and cast members, each of which said, "I've been loyal for too long. I concealed facts that ought to have been revealed. I'm prepared to share the entire tale now, but it won't be on camera. Come see me in the garden." Yandy once videotaped her vow renewal with Mendeecees in the garden, which was code for a private rooftop. Few individuals showed there, including Safari, Camilla, Spice, and Mona Scott. It had turned into a place of power where boundaries were formed. Young herself, Yandandi stood in front of them with her hair wrapped and her voice calm as she explained all she knew about Jock's treachery, the DNA rumors, and the scrolls. "If I give you everything, Jock's messages, Jasmine's audio files, the lab email from Amina, will you air the truth or will you bury it for ratings?" she asked Mona. Didn't respond immediately, but her eyes gleamed like a lady who had just discovered her next 3 episode, plot a confrontation and candlelight. Be examined. When Jock returned home that evening, Kendra was seated at the dining table with a low-light candle and her wedding ring spinning gently on the glossy wood. "You lied to me," she murmured without even looking up. Jock let out a breath. "What about it?" It was an old video footage from 2 years ago, and she turned the phone toward him. Cuddled up next to Jock on what appeared to be a private trip, Jasmine was obviously pregnant, with a crib behind her, a date stamped, and a place noted. Jock began. "You said you didn't know that, baby." "I didn't," but Kendra got to her feet sharply and slowly. "You got him diapers, you held him, and you instructed Jasmine to keep quiet." He blinked, caught, exposed, muttering, "I didn't think it would blow up like this. And now Mendeecees is in jail. You, Jock, are simply is in jail. You, Jock, are simply making jokes on Instagram when Kirk's entire marriage is collapsing. I'm not standing next to you when this storm hits. And it will hit," she said, sliding her ring across the table before turning to go. The internet responds as the candle flickers and Jock, for once, remains silent. This seems biblical. Social media was in full meltdown mode, with hot hashtags on X, previously Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, including Frost Fallout, Mendeecees Mess, and Jock Baby. Among the more outrageous viral interpretations were Jock is the father. "I'm calling it now," and "this man fumbled multiple families for one story." Line Yandandi has been the most genuine since the beginning. She gave him everything, and he returned the favor by giving her secrets and scrolls. "I'll be listening Rashida's upcoming diss tune every day," but one TikTok psychic went too far. The scrolls, according to her, were more than simply props. They were a component of a hex, a binding curse connected to anybody who attempted to reject the kid. And the curse wouldn't end until the truth was revealed in public, or until someone passed away. The fanbase felt a chill. All of a sudden, the scenario stopped being humorous. It seemed biblical. Just as the city started to breathe again at morning, something changed that nobody anticipated. It was the call was made by the groundskeeper at Atlanta's Glenwood Cemetery, who had been clearing undergrowth when he came upon an unmarked but not empty disturbed gravesite. The police and VH1 executives responded promptly, and they found an old duffel bag tied in shackles hidden beneath cracked cement within the tiny trench. 3 other wax-sealed scrolls, addressed to Rashida, Yandandi, and Jasmine, as well as an unsigned black envelope with the simple label Mona placed underneath them, were found within that bag. Mona Scott Young's face became pale as soon as she opened hers. She simply walked to her SUV and drove out without saying anything. A private communication purportedly from Mona to the network bosses was stolen, screenshotted, and distributed anonymously later that day. "We were wrong," it said. "This is more than simply a plot. This dates back many years. This has been directed and planted by someone. The video, the paternity leak, the scrolls, it was never at random. The individual every secret was hidden behind this. I believe it was Stevie J. Hold on, Stevie J. The man who, following his own controversies, disappeared from the franchise years ago. The person who was allegedly blackballed from the industry. Stevie is that?" Abruptly, everything fell into place. The cursed, the ancient symbols, and the scroll's whispers. The concealment, everything was tracked back to a person who was skilled at controlling emotion, destroying connections, and skillfully create havoc. He was motivated, the time and the reach. At a party on the roof, Stevie J had once informed young Jock, "They will regret sending me packing when I return. I'm not finished. I'm simply reloading." No one trusted him up to this point, because Jasmine's last scroll had one burned into the paper was a single statement. "The truth is what your son deserves, but only following the overthrow of the monarchs." Then, when the internet started to yell, the cliffhanger fell. At Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, a private aircraft touches down. Cameras are in motion. A man with shades and a sly smile walks off in complete black, returning to Stevie J Atlanta and prepared for combat. It's your time now. If you were Rashida, would you remain at Kirk's side despite being aware of the deceit? The hidden kid? And now that is there a prophecy looming over you? Would you pardon Mendeecees if you were let go and preserve your tranquility after years of deceit? If your name emerged in one of those scrolls, before the truth, would you burn it or open it? Eats everything. Because this is the actual query. How many betrayals are there? How long until love turns into a curse? We witnessed the breakdown of a fraternity. Families were split apart. Friendships were broken. However, this tale is not yet finished. It's only getting started. The curse of bloodline has been activated. The mysteries concealed in graves are struggling to get to the surface. And now that Stevie J is back, the game is completely different. What will he reveal? He wants to exact revenge on whom? Why did Mona Scott Young leave? After reading the scroll, are you silent? This isn't simply reality TV anymore. It's unrestrained reality. Leave a comment with your ideas. Who do you believe is actually the dad? Was Jock in